Everybody, this is Hondo Carpenter, your Sports Illustrated Las Vegas Raiders beat writer. Thanks for joining me today. I'm just getting over strep throat, so I'm going to go as long as I can today, within reason, trying to answer some of your emails. But really appreciate you joining me today. I hope your week got started yesterday. I love Mondays. Mondays are just a great way to attack your week. My dad used to always say that for people that don't like Mondays, your competition are out there working hard, making the most of it. So don't let them get ahead of you. I love Mondays. A lot of good stuff. The Raiders are signing some players, and we're going to get to all of that later in the week. But want to answer your questions and emails that you've sent in, not all of them. Now, I want to remind you of a couple of things. We don't take emails, Twitter questions. We don't take them on IG. You can follow me on known as Twitter at Hondo Carpenter. You can follow me on IG at Hondo SR. But we don't take the questions there for this. You got to email them in. Here's why. We don't let people hide behind anonymity. So you got to put your name. Now, we don't use people's full name but you got to put your name on there for us to see. We want to know it's coming from a legitimate person. And you can only email once a week. Some people have just been put in the spam folder because they email all the time. And we've warned you about that, so don't do it. But we want to answer questions and give you the latest insight because guess what? You're the listeners. Your question, I can assure you, based on the voluminous amounts of emails, we get hundreds of them. Based on the voluminous amount of email we get, we take the ones that are the most asked, and then we try to answer those. So if one person asks out of several hundred, we may just put it away. But if we get a bunch of people, then we know, hey, this is one that we need to answer. And then occasionally we'll just put one in there because we think it's hilarious. So let's get right going to the emails today. The first one comes from Humberto. I apologize. With a name like Hondo, it's important to me to get people's names right. So it's Humberto or Humberto. I apologize with the last initial of E. Hondo, help me understand something. If AP said he wanted the QB1 settled, why not pick a QB and settle it? I know you reported what and how it happened and what was going to happen, what was not going to happen, but it doesn't make sense. And that's from Humberto E. Now, let me address this real quick. And I said it at the time when Antonio Pierce made those comments. I want QB1 settled. That was not a statement against Aiden or Gardner or Anthony and now Scott, the UDFA quarterback. It wasn't a statement against any of them. It was a statement of, I want to get it settled. Hey, I want to find out, is Aiden my guy? If he's not, then we're going to move on. But he might be. Now, I reported all this at the time. You can go back and this is what I love about the digital age. You can go back and listen to what I said, hear what I said, and understand exactly that that's what we told you at the time. The problem is, Humberto, is a lot of times people listen through a filter of what they want to believe. Now, that is why it is important to understand, am I getting information from a reporter or from a fan? I get asked all the time, do you have problems with fans having podcasts? Of course not. There's a few of them that I go on. I have no problem with that because they tell you I'm a fan. This is what I want. There's nothing wrong with that. But when I go on those shows, I remind people I'm not. And so if you're a fan I'll give you an example. Okay. Let's say that I have a buddy who went to USC, loves USC. And anytime someone raised concerns about Caleb Williams, he would do this. No, 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 no. You may be right, but I'm a USC fan. As far as I'm concerned, Caleb Williams is the greatest quarterback in the world. I get that. That's fun. And I appreciated that. He's a fan. Fans are allowed to be that way. It comes from the word fanatic. I am not. And so what happens is, or people get so excited because they're constantly being told, oh, the Raiders are moving up. Ooh, the Raiders are making a lot of phone calls. Or the Raiders are pulling out all the stops. No, they weren't. And we told you that. And I understand sometimes the truth is boring. but I would rather bore you with truth than get a million clicks with hyperbole. It just wasn't accurate. And so that's why his statements were very clear. I want it settled. But wanting it settled didn't mean he didn't like who he had. He's ready for someone to go out and demonstrate. It's my job. That's exactly what AP meant. I'm not changing it based on what happened in the draft because I reported that at the time and reported it throughout the process. That's a good question, Humberto, and a lot of people asked it. Next comes from Rob W. I'm curious how much impact a head coach and GM has on the rest of the Raider organization outside of football in football operations. Obviously, when the team is winning, spirits will be higher, making easier to sell tickets, merchandise, and advertising as it's easier for the PR. In what other ways does the coach and GM affect the rest of the organization? On a side note, what changes have you noticed in the atmosphere at the Raiders headquarters? From Rob W. This is a great question. Got several of it that were along this vein. All of them worded differently, but asking essentially the same question. I'm going to share a couple things. I'm not going to tell you what teams I'm talking about. Could be the Raiders, could not be the Raiders, because I don't think that would be fair to the teams that I've covered. But I can tell you this. I know coaches that are very dry. I'll give you an example. I know a coach, an NFL coach, that he goes to his new team the first day and does his press conference. The second day, he comes walking in and he has gotten a haircut from the day before, in which the receptionist says, "Hey, coach, nice haircut." 4 words. That's all she said. And I know that for 100% fact. By 10 o'clock that morning, every employee in the building, including the players, had a memo. Do not speak to the head coach unless he speaks to you. Everybody in the organization hated him. Hated him. That's a 100% factual story. Everyone in the organization hated him. And it was a very short time till he got out. People didn't want to help him. People didn't want to work with him. People would do the bare minimum. Okay. I know another coach who would miss a practice once a year to go see little league games of one of his coaches or do something once a year. He tried to do it in the off season, but if he couldn't, he would go do something, maybe to watch a practice or a game or go see one of his staff members' kids practice. And he always remembered their birthdays. And he and his wife would always send him a great gift, just saying, "Thank you for sharing your dad with us. You should be so proud. He's a great guy." Him and his wife would always pay for an anniversary dinner on whenever the employee's anniversary was. This was all the staff. And then the non-support staff, he would always send a birthday card for all of their kids, even people down to janitors, with a little, gift card, a $50 gift card. He treated everybody great. Oftentimes, he would bring in the janitorial staff if they were there late, when the coaches were there late, invite him to come have pizza with them. He would give tickets to janitors and everyone else. The whole organization just dearly loved him. And they worked hard for him. They cared about him. It mattered. This guy kept a lot of assistants. They were loyal to him. And when other teams would say, "How come you never changed?" They go, "My wife loves the coach." It mattered. I'll give you another one. I knew a general manager one time. A player died. And it was the morning of I believe it was his grandmother's funeral. And the GM goes, "What are you doing here?" He goes, "Well, I got practice. My grandma would want me to be here." He goes, "I don't want you here. And the GM and the player got on a plane, private plane, flew to the funeral, and were back that night. It changes the whole perspective. Everybody wants to be part of a winning organization, but everybody also wants to be part of an organization that understands you're in the people business. My father was a successful businessman, and he would give talks to people, and they would want to know what's the best field to sell in, what's this. And my dad would always stop everybody. He'd say, now listen, I don't care if you sell steel, carpet, houses, you're a lawyer, a doctor, a reporter, whatever you do for a living, you need to understand you're in the people business. It's about people. And when you understand whatever you do in life is about people, then you understand what you're really doing. And I don't care whatever you do for a living. Maybe you're a young person growing up. We got a lot of young people that watch, and you're wondering what to do with my life. Well, remember something. It's about people. Whatever you do, it's about people. People matter. People count. People are important. And I can tell you, Tom Telesco is very reserved. But one thing that I have heard no complaints is he's very warm. People have come up to him, introduced themselves. He's been just very warm with everybody. I heard a story from a worker, and I want to be careful because I don't want to expose who the worker is, but they're a non-football worker for the Raiders. And they told me this story that AP was walking through the hall, and they had said to him, good win, coach. And he put around, and he just says to him, hey, wasn't that great? And, how you've been a Raider fan long. And they talked for a minute. And AP said to the person, we couldn't do this without you. I appreciate you. And it doesn't matter what the gentleman or lady does for the organization. The point is AP and Tom Telesco have made everybody inside feel like an important part. Now, this is important. They are an important part. See, if you make somebody feel like it, but it's disingenuous, people know that. Jim Tressel, the great Ohio State football coach, many people don't know his dad was a great coach, and Jim's a great friend of mine. And Jim's father used to say, who was a great coach, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's being genuine. The players bought in immediately to AP. They loved him before he was the head coach because he cared about them, because they mattered. They mattered to AP. He knew who their wives were, their girlfriends were, their kids were. He knew what was going on in their life, even when he was just an assistant, because he's a people person. Tom Telesco is not as outgoing as AP, not as gregarious, but he's very warm. He's very, very warm. And I can tell you this, and I'm not going to get into anything that's off the record. People appreciate people who are genuine. And Tom Telesco is extremely warm with his family. People see that, they appreciate that. And he's very good to people in the organization. He's not too busy to talk to people. They'll greet him or great draft and thanks. What did you like? AP is over the top gregarious. And if you ever saw AP with his wife and children, same with Tom Telesco. These are men, deeply devoted fathers, deeply devoted husbands. They understand that they've got 1 in 32 jobs. They understand how elite, but sometimes, and a lot of men are this way, there are some women too, we draw our sense of who we are from our job. And that's not right. My job is what I do. I enjoy my job. People say to me all the time, man, Hondo, I bet you love your job. No, I love my family. I love the Lord. I love my country. I enjoy my job. I'm thankful for my job. Now, I love a lot of the people I work with because they're great people, and I love people, but I don't love inanimate things. My job is inanimate. And so how do they affect organizations? Like that. There's a sense of pride. I can tell you there is such a sense of pride and excitement inside the Raiders facility right now. And Mark Davis, and Tom Telesco have been Viagra for the spiritual soul of the organization. And what you see that they've done with the fan base, they've done inside the building. That was a great question. And that was again from Rob W. The next one comes from Alex C. Hondo, before the draft, when talking about the visits and pro days, you said Tom Telesco and the Raiders would not telegraph what they were doing. He then said your exact words after the NFL draft. You called it the entire way. I feel stupid for criticizing you. Can you give more details? Yes. There were some people that the Raiders did visits with, went to some pro days with, that they had no interest in. And I knew that the Raiders were not going to telegraph what they wanted to do. That was not in their game plan. Why tell people what you're going to do? You've got your security team that does a complete background. You get the medical reports from the combine. You get your interviews. You can do some stuff on Zoom. But unless you have pick one, there is no reason to telegraph. Yes, I knew that was the Raiders' philosophy. I said about that all the time. And yes, I found it very interesting that Tom Telesco used almost the exact same words that I've been using to you also. There's no reason to telegraph. Now, let's keep going. The next one comes to us from Jason B. With the recent video of Patrick Mahomes and his wife graciously handling Raider Nation razzing, is that the type of energy you are referencing when you say the Raiders are taking up real estate in the mind of Pat Mahomes? Now, let me say a couple things. First of all, I believe Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL, number one. Number two, I think Andy Reid, right now, today, is the best coach in the NFL. I also like both of them very much. They're both very good people and good men. I am not a big fan of some of the other stars, not all of them, but some of them on the Chiefs. I absolutely believe, and I believe I know, the Raiders are inside their head. Now, they're champions. They're champions. So they're going to remember that. But yes, absolutely. That is exactly what I'm talking about. And I would expect Brittany and Patrick to handle it no other way. Now, I had no problem. They're leaving a restaurant and people, Raiders, that's fun. Now, if you go to their home and you bug them while they're sitting at dinner with their family, yeah, that's ridiculous. Now, I know of a guy who was a fan of an NFL team, not going to tell you what team, and saw a quarterback from another NFL team arrival there. And he walked over and said, named his teams, we're going to get you this year. And the guy laughed and he said, listen, I don't want to bug you. I just wanted to make a joke, but for doing that, I'm buying your dinner. Get another bottle of wine. And the quarterback's like, oh man, okay, cool. But when they're with their family, the people that razzed them did nothing wrong. They were leaving and it was fun. And Brittany and Patrick were very gracious about it. I can tell you, having been around Brittany and Patrick, they're very gracious people. They're good people. And yeah, but every signing, the Raiders are talking about them. They want them to know. Now, you've not heard the Raiders one time been disrespectful, not once, but reminding them, we're coming. We're coming. We're coming. Oh, that's exciting. That's what makes football fun. It's the rivalries. Oh, now you know I'm telling you the truth. And yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And again, that's from Jason B. Next one comes to us from Brian T. in West Virginia. On a previous podcast, mentioned the 20-week NFL schedule with President's Day following the Super Bowl. With President's Day following the Super Bowl, I noticed that every 7 years or so, that the Super Bowl would then be on Valentine's Day. Has the NFL potentially ruined most relationships going forward? At least huge complications? I thought this was funny. Yeah, that would be interesting. But I can't think of a better way to celebrate Valentine's Day than at the Super Bowl. Sorry, sorry. I can't think of a better way to celebrate Valentine's Day. Super Bowl. Can you? That's a good one. That was fun. Thank you, Brian. Next from N. Clackley. What do you believe the rest of the league's takeaways are on the Telesco AP partnership from this draft class and offseason altogether? As a Raider fan, I feel like we're building a bully, but does that does the rest of the league think so? First of all, who cares? You either are or you aren't. Make sense? I remember years ago I was going out bow hunting. Now I've lost a lot of weight. I'm 255 pounds now, and I've lost a lot of weight, well over 100 pounds. And I'm in all my camo, my face is painted, and I'm headed out to hunt. And my young son looks up, and because it was well before dawn, and he had woken up because he heard Daddy, and he said to me, "Daddy, do you think that the bear won't see you in the tree?" I laughed, and I thought, that's a great question. And my whole point is, who cares if they think you're building a bully? Who cares? If you are, they're going to know it. And with what they saw last year coming down the stretch, they know it. Now, I will tell you, I texted a executive after the draft and asked them, what did you think of the Raiders draft? Now I'm paraphrasing now because I've already deleted the text, but he said this to me. Most general managers, when they inherit a coach they didn't hire, they draft to the system that they probably want to play, hedging their bet that they're going to probably have to fire the coach. And this guy said to me, regardless of what you think of the draft, Tom Telesco picked all AP guys. He clearly believes in AP. Clearly. And that tells you that their relationship is strong. I thought that was one of the most powerful things that I've reported to you. And I hope Raider Nation hears that. That's powerful. Now, I don't listen to them, but for the podcast that I get emails on, people saying, they're taking your material. I don't care. If you take material off this podcast and you do podcasts, that's great. I don't care. You should be talking about that. That's a big deal. It tells you a lot about the character of Tom Telesco and what he thinks of the character of Antonio Pierce. Lastly, from Glenn L. Hondo, now that the draft is over, from 0 to 100, what do you think is the organization's level of trust in Tom Telesco? I realize it depends on other factors besides draft picks, but what are you hearing from people inside the Raiders organization? That's a great email, Glenn, and I'm going to answer it for you very simply and very straightforward. There is a sense of excitement in that building. The people in the building liked Dave Ziegler. I would say to you, if I was just being brutally honest, he was connected at the hip with Josh McDaniels. So I don't believe that Dave was as popular as Tom is. But there is a more excitement inside the building right now. And this is my 5th year than any year I've ever covered the Raiders. It's euphoric. People are excited. They feel, one person said to me, just feels like we got a rudder. Now, if you don't know what a rudder is, maybe you're from the desert here and I'm from Michigan where you're always around water. The rudder is what gives your boat direction. And this one person said to me, it just feels like our organization has a rudder. That is a monster deal. That is a super big deal. When they say, hey, we feel like our organization now is going in a right direction. Hey, this is good. We feel like our organization is headed in the right way. That's exactly what they feel. They're on board. This is Team Telesco and Team AP, and it's a good team. Now they got to win games. And as you know, I'm going to give AP 20. I'm going to give them 20. But there is a lot of excitement. There's a lot of trust in Mark Davis. There's a lot of trust in Tom. There's a lot of trust in AP, the players. This place is unified. I was told by a worker of the Raiders recently that it's never been like this, that it's pretty cool. I'm going to share more later. I don't want to share it right now, and you'll understand why in a few weeks, but I'm going to share a letter that I got from a Raider employee. And it's a really positive, good letter, just a great letter. And I think you'll really enjoy it. So, from all of us to all of you, my voice starting to go, so I'm gonna stop right there. But I'll get to some more Q and A's, hopefully later this week. But from all of us to all of you, I hope that you're doing well. God bless you all greatly. Thanks for listening today.